The champagne glass in my hand caught the light, glinting like a secret I wasn't ready to tell. The laughter in the room felt rehearsed, like everyone already knew the script but me. I was halfway through a bite of cake when my sister's voice cut through the music. She stood, raised her glass and smirked, the kind of smirk that made you feel small before the words even landed. "That deed was a mistake," she announced, her eyes locked on mine. "The house is ours." A ripple of awkward laughter moved through the tables. My father leaned back in his chair, sipping his drink, and added with a chuckle, "We're moving in after your honeymoon." I didn't blink. I didn't ask why. Instead, I let the moment hang, a stillness they couldn't read. The clinking of forks on plates seemed too loud, the DJ's playlist suddenly muffled behind the thud of my heartbeat. My dress felt heavier, as if the weight of every thread now carried their arrogance. And then, my phone buzzed. I glanced down. One message. From an unknown number. "Don't react. They're recording." Felt like the room tilted for a second. The chandelier's glow seemed colder, sharper, cutting across their faces like a spotlight on villains who thought they were invisible. I smiled, slow, deliberate, and excused myself. My heels clicked softly against the polished floor as I stepped away from the laughter, away from the clinking glasses, away from the family that had just declared war without realizing it. In the hallway, I opened the smart lock app on my phone. My thumb hovered for a fraction of a second, then tapped delete access. Their names vanished one by one from my home's entry permissions. By the time I returned to my seat, my sister was telling a story to the table, pretending nothing had happened. But I knew. And in a few hours they'd know too. At midnight, my phone lit up on the nightstand, 70 missed calls. I didn't pick up, because the Betrayal story was just beginning. They thought this was about a house. They didn't realize it was about the truth I'd been holding back for years. The next morning, the sun poured through the hotel curtains like it had nothing to apologize for. My husband was still asleep, his arm draped across me, steady, grounding. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the city waking up, while my phone pulsed with notifications on the nightstand. 70 missed calls had turned into 92. The group chat was a battlefield. "Dad, open the door right now." "Sister, this is illegal." "Mom, we're calling the police." And then, a video link. I hesitated before tapping it. It was from my cousin, no caption. The video started in the middle of last night. My sister's phone, shaky in the dark, aimed at my front porch. Dad banging on the door, Mom shouting my name, their voices slurred from wine. "See? She's overreacting," my sister said from behind the camera, her voice dripping with mockery. The message from the reception came back to me. "Don't react. They're recording." So that's what this was. They wanted to catch me losing control, to paint me as the ungrateful daughter, the unstable one, the story they'd been whispering for years. Instead, all the footage showed was me not being there at all. I got up quietly, slipped into the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. My reflection stared back at me, calm, almost too calm, but I could feel the storm just beneath my skin. This wasn't just about humiliation at my wedding reception. This was about how they'd been circling my life for years, waiting to take whatever I built. I sat back on the bed, opened my laptop and pulled up the files I'd been keeping for months. Scans of documents, copies of messages, photos they didn't know I had. Because the deed they were mocking? It wasn't the only property in my name. I took a deep breath, my hand steady on the trackpad. If they wanted to play this as a public spectacle, I could make the stage much, much bigger. By the time my husband stirred awake and asked what I was doing, I just smiled. "Starting the honeymoon early," I said softly. "By burning a bridge so completely, they'll never find their way back." By noon, my phone buzzed again, not with family calls but with a different kind of alert. The neighborhood group chat was lighting up. "Neighbor number 1. There's a U-Haul outside your place. Is someone moving in?" "Neighbor number 2. Saw your dad trying to get in last night. Weird vibes." I replied with one line. "If anyone sees them near my property, call me first." That was all it took for curiosity to turn into quiet alliance. People love a mystery, and in our neighborhood, loyalty is often bought with truth shared at the right moment. I left the hotel room while my husband ordered breakfast. The August heat hit me like a wall, but it was nothing compared to the heat building in my chest. The walk to the nearby cafe felt different today. Every footstep deliberate, every breath a reminder that this wasn't reaction. This was preparation. I ordered an iced coffee, found a quiet corner, and opened the private folder on my laptop. Inside were years of receipts. With the gifts I'd paid for that they'd claimed as their own. The repairs I'd funded on their house without a word. Screenshots of texts where they laughed about me behind my back, thinking they'd sent them to someone else. And then the real leverage. A recording from 3 years ago. Dad in his own voice telling my uncle that, one day we'll just take what's hers, she won't fight back. I stared at that file for a long time, letting the weight of it settle. They had spent years laying a trap for me. But they never realized I'd been quietly building one of my own. The plan was taking shape faster than I expected. I messaged an old friend, a realtor who owed me a favor, and typed 7 words. Listed. Confidential. No family contact allowed. If they wanted to claim the house, they could try bidding for it like strangers. Public listing, open market. And in the process, every neighbor, every acquaintance, every whisper in this town would see exactly whose name had been on that deed from the start. When I walked back into the hotel room, my husband looked up from the balcony. "They're going to come here next," he said. I just set my coffee down and smiled faintly. I know. That's why I left the door unlocked. It didn't take long. By late afternoon, the knock came, sharp, hurried, like the sound of someone trying to kick politeness aside. Through the peephole, I saw my sister first. Arms crossed, hair pulled back too tight, the same smirk from the wedding now replaced with a sharp, impatient glare. Behind her, Dad. Sunglasses on, indoors, jaw clenched. I opened the door slowly, leaning against the frame like I had all the time in the world. "We need to talk," my sister said, pushing forward. I didn't move. "You're trespassing," I replied softly, my voice barely above a whisper. Dad stepped in. "Enough of this. We know what you did. You locked us out of our house. Our house." The words tasted rotten in the air. I glanced toward my phone on the table. The red light on the voice memo app glowed like a secret flame, recording every word. "Funny," I said, tilting my head. "You seemed very sure it was yours. Until now." My sister scoffed. "Stop playing games. We'll get the deed transferred back." I raised my eyebrows. "Back? That would imply it was yours in the first place." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. I could see it in Dad's posture. The shift from arrogant certainty to the faintest flicker of doubt. "I'm selling it," I said flatly. "You wouldn't dare," my sister shot back. Instead of answering, I stepped aside and motioned toward the balcony, where my laptop sat open. The listing was already live. High-resolution photos of every room, every detail, each one stamped with the realtor's watermark. The title under the main image read, "For sale by sole owner." Dad's jaw tightened. "You'll regret this." I smiled faintly. "You've mistaken me for someone who still fears you." They left without another word, but not without slamming the door hard enough to make the walls tremble. The sound echoed, but it didn't rattle me. As soon as they were gone, I sent the recording to my private cloud folder. And then one final text to the unknown number who'd warned me at the reception. "Round 1 is over. Ready for round 2? The reply came within minutes. "Meet me tonight. Usual place." No name. No signature. Just the same number that had stopped me from reacting at the reception. By 8 p.m. I was sitting in the corner booth of a dim cafe 3 blocks from the hotel. The hum of the espresso machine filled the space between us when she walked in. My cousin Elise. We hadn't spoken in years, not since the night she'd left one of Dad's birthday parties early, her face pale, eyes tight. Now I knew why. "I couldn't let them blindside you," she said quietly, sliding into the booth. "They've been planning this for months." She pulled a worn leather folder from her bag and pushed it across the table. Inside were printed emails, text screenshots, even a copy of a family trust draft my parents had drawn up, with my name crossed out and my sister's penciled in. "They were waiting for you to be out of town. Honeymoon was the perfect cover," Elise continued. "They wanted the confrontation on camera so they could show everyone you're unstable." I let out a slow breath, my fingers tracing the edge of the folder. "Too bad they don't realize I've been recording them longer than they've been plotting against me," I said. Elise smiled faintly. "That's why I came to you. You're the only one who knows how to hit back without losing your dignity." And that's when the next phase formed in my mind, not just selling the house but exposing them publicly in a way they couldn't spin. I slid my phone across to her, showing her the live listing, the view count climbing by the minute. When this sells, every neighbor, every friend, every so-called family member will know whose name was on the papers. And the best part. I paused, leaning in. I won't have to say a single word. She reached for her coffee, nodding slowly. You're going to let the silence speak for you. Exactly. When I left the cafe, the night air was warm and heavy. My phone buzzed again, this time from the realtor. 3 offers already. One of them from an LLC I don't recognize. I didn't need to ask who was behind it. My sister was already trying to buy back what she thought she could steal. I walked faster. Tomorrow I'd make sure she couldn't. Morning came with the kind of stillness that always precedes a storm. The hotel curtains were half drawn, letting in a blade of sunlight that cut across the floor. I sat at the desk, coffee in hand, refreshing the realtor's portal. 5 offers now. 2 from names I recognized. 3 from shells trying to hide behind acronyms. The highest one had a familiar pattern. The kind of rushed, inflated bid people make when they're desperate to end a fight before it starts. I clicked the details. Cash offer. No contingencies. Buyer listed as Merit Holdings LLC. Dad's middle name? Merit. Subtle as a brick through glass. I called the realtor. Decline it. There was a pause. You're sure? That's a lot to walk away from. I'm not walking away, I said. I'm making sure it goes to someone who won't hand them the keys. The moment I hung up, the phone lit up with my sister's name. I let it ring. Then Dad. I let that one ring too. But the voicemail came through anyway, his voice low and tight. You've made your point. Now stop before this gets ugly. It was almost funny. The way he said before, as if we weren't already standing in the rubble of what they'd tried to burn down. By noon, Elise texted me a single photo. My parents in their driveway, pacing, phones pressed to their ears, panic etched across their faces. I didn't reply. Instead, I posted a quiet update to my private Instagram. A picture of my hand turning the lock on the house one last time, captioned, "Sometimes the only way to protect your home is to let it go." No names. No details. Just the image. Within an hour, mutual friends were sharing it, the comment section already filling with questions they'd never dare ask my family directly. And in that silent space between what they wanted the world to believe and what the world was now imagining, my power grew. That night, another alert from the realtor. Offer accepted. Closing in 10 days. And I knew exactly who the buyer was, and why it would end this war before they even had a chance to reload. The official paperwork arrived in my inbox at 9:04 a.m. the next morning. I scrolled straight to the buyer's information. A single name, no LLC to hide behind. Angela Rivera. A retired schoolteacher who'd lived 3 streets over for 30 years. The kind of woman who waved at everyone, baked cookies for the block, and once told me she wished she could buy a little place with a garden before her knees gave out. It wasn't just a sale. It was a transfer of safety. The house would never fall into my family's hands again. By midday, the whispers had turned into full-blown rumors. Texts from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Your parents are saying you tricked them. Your sister's telling everyone you had no right to sell. I didn't respond. But Elise did, and she didn't hold back. She dropped screenshots into the very group chats my parents thought they controlled. Screenshots of the deed in my name. Screenshots of Dad admitting on a hot mic, "One day we'll just take what's hers." No commentary. No added venom. Just the truth, time-stamped and undeniable. The fallout was immediate. Mutual friends stopped liking my sister's posts. The polite invitations that kept my parents at the center of neighborhood gatherings started to vanish. By evening, they weren't the hosts anymore. They were the whispered about cautionary tale. That night, as I sat on the hotel balcony, my husband handed me his phone. A message from Angela, the new owner. I just wanted to say, this house will be loved. And safe. Always. I stared at that line for a long time. Safe. Always. 2 words my family had never given me, but that I had just given to someone else. Down in the street, headlights swept past. A black sedan slowing as it passed the hotel, then speeding up again. I didn't need to see the faces inside to know. They were watching. And tomorrow they'd finally learn the rest. Morning broke with a thin veil of fog, the kind that makes everything feel quieter than it is. I was at the cafe before it even opened, laptop out, coffee steaming. The final step wasn't about selling the house. It was about making sure their version of the story never replaced the truth. At 9:15 I posted a single video. No captions. No music. Just clips stitched together in silence. And my sister at the reception, glass raised, smirking. Her dad leaning back, saying, "We're moving in after your honeymoon." The smart lock screen, my thumb pressing delete access. Their voices outside my front door, pounding, shouting. The deed, my name clear and unshakable in black ink. The final frame? Me turning the key in the lock for the last time. Within hours the video spread. Not viral. Not yet. But enough that by lunch my phone was flooded with messages from people who now saw the full picture. No more whispers. No more warped retellings. That evening Elise called. "They've stopped trying to spin it," she said. "They're not answering anyone's questions." I could hear the unspoken truth in her voice. They'd been cornered by their own arrogance. Later that night my husband and I walked past the hotel's front desk. There, sitting in the lobby, were my parents and my sister. No smirks. No glass raising. Just silence. They didn't look at me. And I didn't slow down. As we stepped out into the warm night air I realized something. This wasn't just about a house. It was about reclaiming every inch of space in my life that they tried to occupy. They had come to my wedding with plans to humiliate me. I left my wedding with a plan that ended them.